Catching up with Sarah and Ginny, fueled by laughter and insights aplenty. Curiosity, connection, and learning that sticks. Real talk, real lives with practical tips. Welcome to Catching Up with Sarah and Ginny. Come on in.
Hello, Sarah. Lovely to see you again. We're kind of, well, if you can't see us, you need to know this. We're both kind of matching in a kind of redness, aren't we?
We are. You've gone for the autumnal redness, I think, and I'm still kind of keeping hold of the summer sort of.
We could do an actual whole episode about when do you put your clothes away and when don't you? Yes, you know, sometimes we go a bit early, we go a bit late.
Yeah, I still have that whole thing around footwear. So I kind of I'm still in trainers, and it's like, when do the boots come out? And really, I think it matches usually when I light the fire. So once I light the fire, I think the boots come out. But last night I wanted to light the fire. So there you go.
Yeah, trainers can span all seasons, can't they really?
Well, I'm hoping, actually. I think I think that's a really good one. I have taken a bit of a leaf out of your book and ordered myself a suit in one colour. So I'm not going to say. I really wanted to go with red, but obviously, Ginny, now that's a bit of your signature. So, I think Mr. Gilbert has captured you beautifully in your red trousers and your suit jacket, which I have to say, not your suit jacket, it's your waistcoat.
Yes.
Is it a waistcoat?
Yes, it was a waistcoat. Yeah, it was a waistcoat, red trouser combination.
It worked well. I did go and pick up my son from school yesterday, and his teacher came out and she had one of the little waistcoats on as well. And I was like, oh, it's a really good look, isn't it? But anyway, that's aside, really, Ginny. We'll get on with the episode, shall we?
Well, not really, because I was going to say, what have you been up to? So, we can talk footwear, we can talk, tell me what you've been up to recently.
I mean, it's the actual clothing situation is tricky because you're coming up to, dare I say it, times of year when you might want to get certain clothing and special clothing to be able to wear. And you're also at that change time. I've got quite a few exciting events coming up. I've got some with you, which is very exciting. One of which we need to sort out our clothing for. So that's been very much on my mind, thinking about what to wear. But I've actually been in in-person training for quite a lot of last week and a little bit of the week before, which is always exciting. I do a lot of work online, but actually once you get in person into schools, meet the staff, see the schools again, and all of the fabulous stuff that happens in schools. So I've kind of been working with staff right across different contexts, special schools, mainstream schools, and it's really exhilarating, but really exhausting. And you're really aware of actually how much they have to do. And you're just reminded of that, of how much everyone is juggling and everyone is trying to keep up in the air, all of those little things that we're thinking about.
And I think you're right. And I think it's, I've been doing in-person training, and I think it's about the energy that is actually in the building and actually gauging it, isn't it? How much do I share so that I don't overwhelm? And I think that's really important. And also with training and when we're in schools, I think it's really important, isn't it, about allowing people to have those conversations every now and again during the training so that they can ingest it, so that they can talk about how it pertains to their setting. It's about gauging it all, isn't it?
And was really interesting because also it's about the fact that it's a whole day, which is huge. And actually, it's not just the conversations, it's the movement. And so I'm starting to build in things where I get people to move tables, which is really interesting because no one wants to. And it reminds you of that whole thing about, that human behavior of we like our little spot, we like our little group. But I had a reflection or an evaluation once where somebody said, I wish we'd moved and spoke to other people a bit more. But
Oh.
they said, oh, I know it was my fault because I didn't want to do it. And I know that you suggested at times for us to do that. So it's about, actually what made me really think was, how do you encourage that group work or that kind of like change of where you're working and who you're working with in a way that's comfortable and a way that's a little bit scaffolded. So it's not a big scary thing of, right, everyone stand up and change table. You have to have a purpose to it. So you kind of like maybe have to get them to find something out from somebody else, which was a really good way of doing it. Was kind of like, that was kind of the activity of going and finding something from another table, something you didn't know about that class, which was that was really good. And actually the other thing that we did was, one of the first schools I went to, the head did a quick introduction and she was amazing. And she just said, we're just going to do a bit of a warm up to kind of help get us eased into the day. So she got everyone to go out of the room and decide, use some objects to make the best entrance into the hall they could. Oh my goodness. I mean, bless her. She said, I'm not going to take up too much of your day. And let's just say it was like a good half an hour, 40 minutes of this, but it was amazing. And is it from Taskmaster? Is it, and basically they all had to, and they literally ran out of the hall, went and got different things from their classrooms. You had people coming in as prom queens. You had a gymnastics display from one class. You had beautiful kind of chariots of fire. They even had the music. They got the dinner trolley and they came in on that.
Wow.
But it was that kind of, and everyone was laughing and and because of the training I was doing was around bringing reading to life and inclusive reading for everyone, actually making them bring their things to life in that way, their stories of how they're going to enter the hall and all the things they had to think about. What would the beginning be like? What would the middle be like? What would the finale be like? It was amazing. And I thought that's so key.
It's really interesting because you need to know your audience.
Oh,
Because
totally.
some people,
Yeah.
that would be their idea of hell.
Oh, absolutely. If you mention role play,
Yeah.
go, oh no, please don't make us do role play.
So, and so it is about knowing your audience, isn't it? And knowing what they will like and what they won't like. It's that I'm saying nuance,
But it's
but I think
it's interesting because it was obviously something she did quite often in different ways. So again, they've been scaffolded and they've had the kind of routine of it. It's a predictable thing. They know how it goes.
Yes.
They all join in. So each group that did it, you had some that were less willing to want to do it, but actually the others kind of helped and supported and encouraged.
Yes.
And so they felt safe to do it. And some just read a thing as they came in, they just helped something. Or one person was just the music person.
But they weren't just,
no,
were they?
that was a really key point. Yeah.
And I think that's really good that you've clarified that is their, that's something they do quite a lot. So that's their normal.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting. When I did some training recently, I put sticky notes on the table with people's names and made them, in inverted commas, sit with people from different schools. And they came in and there was a sharp intake of breath. And everyone sat down and I said, we do this to the children.
All the time. Yep.
All the time. Actually, I'll just say it is in my book. It's kind of something that gets my goat. That is that we can make presumptions about where children should sit because of the behavior we think they are going to experience. So I'm sure, Sarah, we would not be sat together. They go, don't put Ginny and Sarah together. But if we know the rules and the behavior and we really do want to sit together, we will abide by those rules, knowing that actually, if we want to sit together, then this is how it goes. Now, interestingly, for half of the training, the individuals sat where I put the sticky notes, and you could see there was a bit of a oh my goodness, I do this. And then after break, and I gave a break every 45 minutes because I was also saying, actually,
Yeah.
children need a break. And they were like, you're giving us another break? Like, thanks. And I was like, well, yes, so that we can like kind of just have a chat, get a cup of tea,
Yeah.
have a comfort break. When they were allowed to sit where they wanted to, really interesting, everyone did not fully migrate away from the people they had sat with. So I think this whole thing is fascinating. It's about knowing your audience. It's about knowing where their comfort is and where you can push that slightly so that people are out of their comfort zone. And it's for a reason. And if we explain the reason, I think then people go, okay, I get it.
And that is a really, I mean, that's a massive one. I think that kind of leads on a little bit to my to the wow moment around that, was because the choice, when I started to kind of, because I was doing one of the first trainings was around inclusive literacy. The second one was about kind of executive function, thinking about our memories and how we can really empower our learners. And so I talked a lot about choice, and I talked a lot about exactly that. So do we, we might embed that you sit there within a culture of choice about other things. At this point, this is where we sit, because this means that we all, more effective work with our working, or you can see the board, you can do this, so each learner knows. But then and then we're going to have this topic activity or whatever. Our science groups are going to be like this, and you're going to get to choose a little bit about who you feel you can be more creative, more inventive with. So then you kind of, again, are building up the skills. But it's interesting because I was talking about all of this, and the hall in one of the schools was so hot. And I think I had over like 100 people or something in there, and it was really warm. And, I always say I'm over 50. I tend to get hot at different times. So I kept asking for the back door to be opened, and it poured with rain, so it had to be shut. And then loads of people came past, so it had to be shut. So we kind of had this open shut door situation. And then someone at the front said, actually, can we not open the door because I'm cold? And I thought, I'm there talking about choice and empowering people. And not once did I say to the audience, would anyone mind if I open the door, or how are you feeling in turn? Actually check in with, and because you think these things are not necessarily unimportant, but you're just kind of carrying on with what you're doing. And actually, we have to remember the experience of the people that we're working with. And then that was tricky, because then I asked people if they were too hot or not, and nobody said they were. And then when I went to work with some of the staff at the back, they said, oh, we're really hot, can we open the door? And so you've got that issue where people want different things. So that's the classroom. We know, we say, oh, embed choice. And people go, I've got 30 kids. How am I going to embed choice? So we have to consider where we can embed choice. And then we have to consider other aspects, and also be aware that, do you know what? I'm up here entertaining you and trying to give you some useful information. If I'm too hot, I'm not great at it. So how can we balance all of our needs?
It's so interesting, isn't it? I'm thinking my wow moment, I think, was going into a classroom this week and seeing that a teacher had significantly changed their classroom, from different things they'd seen, actually, I think on TikTok. And I wandered in and I went, oh, this looks amazing. And they had put over every child's chair, like a kind of, I don't know, like a bag thing, so that the child could put their pencil case in pockets on the back of their chair. They could put their drinks bottle, they could put all the things that they need to access constantly in pockets on the back of their chair. And it filled me with joy. Well, it did, because it is something that I have this thing about trays, that if you are the child whose tray is at the bottom of a 6, I don't know, layer of trays, and the class teacher says, everyone go and get something from your tray, it's like a rugby scrum, and you are always going to be trampled because the 5 other children will be trying to get them at the same time. I went in, and it was giving space. It
Nice.
was helping the children actually be independent. And I went round and I said to the children, "What do you think?" And it was really interesting, Sarah. They were saying, "Well, we are worried that people might take things out of other people's, I don't know what you call them, chair packs. I don't even know what they're called." I was like, "This is really good. These are really good conversations." So we had that conversation. Then I went back a few days later and I said, "How's it going?" And they were like, "This is brilliant. We don't need our trays." And I'll tell you what will be interesting. I might follow this up, have a chat with the class teacher. Actually, if the children had the choice, it's a bit out there, isn't it? Would they have the chair pack or would they have the tray? You know, and but the class teacher was very aware of the fact that children need to move.
Mhm.
So that was being factored in as well as the easy access for their things. But I just thought that was it was refreshing, Sarah. I think that's what it was.
And you know as well though, it's not an either or sometimes. The trays then become another space that they have within the classroom. And
Yeah.
actually, we're talking a lot within education now about these toolkits or having these kind of things which are accessible to young people. So that thing about movement, actually having some of those tools that they may need to support the scaffold in those trays. So they
Yes.
could some in their chair packs, some things when they don't look obvious that they have to use them. But actually the tray then is another space for them. And I
Yes.
think sometimes we don't give children enough space to have their things and to have ownership. We talk about independence all the time. How independent can they be if there's never anywhere where they can kind of have as their own area to place things or to get things out when they need them? And
And
encouraging.
and I'm sure you've been the same as a class teacher. At the end of the year, I
Yeah,
have said to the children, "Tidy your trays," and there are Christmas cards in there. You
yeah,
know, "Oh, here's a Christmas card that I never took home." So it becomes a place for things to dwell. So
yeah.
I think it's a really interesting one. And the other thing that I found was, the class teacher was like, also, "I've had all of these trays. How much do I need this extra furniture in my
Mm,
classroom versus the space it's giving?"
absolutely.
So it's
Absolutely.
absolutely once again going, actually,
Mm,
is this piece of furniture necessary in this classroom at the moment? Or is it taking up space that would be better used for us to feel like we have more space?
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Like it. I like
yeah,
all of that. That's good.
yeah, I love it.
Like,
I love it. Right, let's move on to Sarah. Have you got a book that you would like to recommend to us or a
um,
book you love?
yeah, a book I love. I'm currently exploring and loving all of the Vocabulary Ninja books. Have you? So
Ah.
read like a ninja, and at every school that I go into, I recommend very little kind of very little kind of short book, but loads of practical activities in it. And actually, in terms of choice and independence, it's that kind of overlearning of some of the things, and the children are there. Underneath, it's like how quickly can you practice reading these sentences? And you time yourself, and they've got attempt one, attempt two, attempt three, attempt
Oh,
four. It could be something that's just
mm,
with the work they're doing. Children who are upper key stage two. I know some of the schools that I'm working with have been using this as that little bit of extra intervention and support. Children have got a bit more of an ownership of it. It starts off much kind of quite just high frequency phrases, and then sort of like fluency challenges. We've got a lot more work around fluency. I know there's loads of things which we've got from the English hubs, which are really supportive around fluency. That's the push this kind of year. But I think, this is what, £4.99, or it depends. You can get it obviously more on with deals, but he's got some really good sentence structured things as well. So I just think we've got so much out there. Sometimes what we need is a quick go to. And what I like about that is it's little. It contains the information in one
mm.
place.
Is
And
this for a child? Sorry, is this for a child to use independently in the classroom, or is this something that parents could use with their children?
both, both.
Oh,
Um,
fab.
So yeah, for what I like about it is you could tell the parents, okay, we've been working on high frequency sentences in our classroom with what we're doing. And actually, if we're at home, they could have a go at these. And instead of it being a reading book, which looks a bit young, it's
Yeah.
actually in a thick, because you don't need it to be a whole reading book. It's
No.
great if it's embedded into a reading book, but they could just be having a book that they're read to at home. And the
Right.
practice bit is just a couple of sentences that they're doing. And then they're
And
having understanding fluency isn't just about speed, it's about the accuracy and you understanding what it's about.
I'm loving that. And I'm loving that, to be honest, it isn't on a device, that it's in a book. It's like lovely, I don't know, overlap, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, fab.
Yeah, and it's just another quick win. I think that sometimes
Yeah.
it's that we've got a lot of really useful stuff out there. We've got all of our SSPs that learners are working within. This is that extra bit, but also in terms of interventions, it can be within a little group that you're working with, and
Oh,
they've got sentences that could be dictated out. He's got Write Like a Ninja as well, and Spell Like a Ninja.
oh,
Um,
great.
and just published a new one, actually. I think it's just come out. But
Right.
yeah, I like things that are accessible. So I think it's quite
Yes.
useful.
Fab. Well,
What's yours?
I'm going back to I often go back to my childhood. So The Magic Porridge Pot is it's a book by Ladybird, and it's just, I don't know, it just takes me back to my childhood, and I think the pictures, which actually are quite scary at times in those books, but I just love the whole story, Sarah, and it's a simple story, but it's just another book I've had since childhood, and I find it fascinating, the fact that I have kept these books because they are precious to me. And I've said before, I, as a child, was not an avid reader, and I think it's just going back to those books that have got
Yeah,
those pictures, and I can tell this, I can tell the story without having to read every word. So I think it's going back to it being accessible and enjoyable. I think that's what both our books are,
yeah.
accessible and enjoyable.
And I think we have to start with that. We have to go back to
Yeah.
that. And I
Yeah.
think we also have to remember was why that was enjoyable for you. And think
Yeah.
about with our learners today, are they getting that experience?
Yeah.
Are they getting that opportunity, that little shared interaction? Wonderful. Okay. Fabulous.
Brilliant. Right. Who's going to say their song?
Well, I've been listening to quite a few songs recently and really kind of like starting to home in on the lyrics. The nice
Oh
one.
my gosh, that is me. That I've been just
Oh my goodness. And luckily I've got a very emotionally driven son who loves songs and loves lyrics of songs and is always wanting to kind of find out what does that mean and what's this? And actually we're using those instead of a bedtime story currently. So we're going through songs because he just isn't into having a
I
bedtime story.
love that.
Yeah. So we're doing songs. And actually, his current favorite is The Duck Went into the Lemonade Store, the duck song. Yeah. Anyway,
Pass me by. And pass me by.
loads of different versions of it. But the nice thing is he's starting to read the words as they come across the screen now because we're
Yes.
talking about it. And he's also laughing at the kind of jokes that are contained within the words. Yes, it's a very interesting one. The guy said if he comes and asks again for grapes, he's a lemonade shop, a lemonade stall. If he comes and asks for grapes again, he doesn't sell grapes. He's going to glue him to the fence. Probably not kind of, as particularly how we'd want necessarily. So the next day, the duck goes in and says, "Have you got any glue?" And the man says, "No." So then he says, "Okay, have you got any grapes?" Oh, it's just a classic. It's just, and again, it's about language and how we use it and how we talk about things. Yeah. So, but
Wow.
that wasn't my send as a song.
Oh,
That was
right. Okay.
a side, Ginny. That was a side.
Right.
My current one is an older one that I used to listen to was Human by Rag and Bone Man.
Wow. Yes.
Oh, and again, it makes you want to cry. But it's about the fact that, especially at difficult times, there's a lot of change to remember we're only human. And as a parent and as a, professional and as all of these kind of different roles, and actually as someone who's trying to currently write, remembering you're only human. I
Yeah.
listened to a great podcast recently by Mel Robbins, which basically was talking about our brains have not evolved as quickly as technology has in terms of the demands put upon us. So we are being asked to shift focus continuously from an email task for this, a very quick Teams meeting for this, to think about so many different things. And actually certain things take some deep thought and deep processes that we may have had previously when we wrote our planning out by hand,
Yes.
when we sat in planning meetings with big bits of paper. Now we might be using an AI generated support, which does it. So it takes the deep thinking out. So actually, we're only human. Our brains don't necessarily work in that way yet. They haven't evolved as quickly as that. So we have to block times for us to be human and have those times for deep thinking. This is my reason around why my writing hasn't happened as much as it should have done. You know, I love it because this is actually a friend of mine that recommended this podcast to me, because she was saying about this deep thinking needed for writing. You can't just say, I've got an hour, I'm going to write this quickly. And that's what I do, because I think, oh, I've got an hour here, I'm going to do
Yes.
this. And your
Yes.
brains can't do that. So it's blocking that time.
Gosh.
And we're already
Yes.
human. There you go. And remembering, that it comes back to how our brains work, have evolved, and you know, it's things are moving very quickly.
Wow.
What's
That's
your
a
thing?
lot to ingest. Well, mine has come on. I thought about it before this podcast, and then you mentioned it. So that's a bit freaky. So my song is St. Elmo's Fire. And you mentioned it earlier, but I was like, oh, and I was listening to St. Elmo's Fire. And then like you, I was like, let me look at the lyrics. And then I went on the internet and looked it up. And I didn't realize this, that St. Elmo's Fire has got two parts to it. So it was for the film Chariots of Fire, but it was actually written about a man who was in a wheelchair and his journey. So the two aspects sent shivers down me. I was like, I wouldn't have known this if I hadn't started to look into the lyrics. And St. Elmo's Fire, apparently, because I've been looking into this now, is also, I think, the light that is on the mast of a ship when it goes into a storm. Sarah, honestly, it's the whole thing has blown my mind.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, a light, you know, as a kind of a Senko, we're sometimes seen as light, you know, or a lighthouse. So that, please look into that whole thing, because I was like, you know, the lyrics of St. Elmo's Fire are really pertinent to special needs. But then I was like, actually, it became broader and broader as I looked into it, about being the light, being the mast of the ship, and always being a light in the storm. So,
Gosh. And it is that, actually, on one of the training days recently, they were talking about nursery rhymes and some of the stories behind nursery rhymes. And actually, I remember researching some of that actually. And you're kind of, the story behind. So it's a story behind the songs, a story behind everything. And I think it's so important to go back to that. So wonderful. I'm loving those, Ginny. Right. Okay. So back to thinking about key takeaways from today. Anything you would like? Shall I give you a quick one of mine?
well, I think my takeaway is the books that you spoke about, that once we finished here, I'm going to look them up, because they're new to me. So thank you. That's my takeaway.
Well, I would say one of the things I recommend from him actually is also Word of the Day. He does these Words of the Day things. He's got a free app, but also you can sign up to it, and it gives you that opportunity right across the school to have the word you are then breaking it down to. When you're thinking about the blending of it, you're thinking about the meanings, you're thinking of breaking it up into its parts, you're thinking about morphology, you're thinking, and actually you can do that all of the week. But anyway, that's it. I think my takeaway actually is going to be that power of music, and the power of because a lot of our young people, particularly those with those more complex needs, are really motivated by music and song.
Yes.
And actually the power of the words within that's what we're trying to do. When we're developing reading, this is what we're trying to get them to think about, that words make us feel in a certain way. and that actually there's that kind of understanding behind that about how we understand and read words and write words ourselves. And that's kind of, I guess, with all of the things that we've talked about, it's that real importance about inclusion, about thinking that actually it's not something that we just kind of have to do as something extra. It's actually just stripping things back a bit and thinking, what can we do that will get it right in that moment or that time for those individuals, staff, learners. And I think if we look at it differently like that, then, and things like the little tips with the books, little tips with thinking about how words make us feel, it's just going back to the basics sometimes, isn't it?
Yes, I agree. I think that's a great way to finish, about going back to the basics. Someone said to me, is it an acronym, KISS? Keep it simple, silly. I don't know about the silly bit on the end.
It was stupid. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. About sometimes just giving yourself a moment and actually going back to, like you say, the basics, or what that individual needs at that time. Brilliant, Sarah. Thank you. That has been, woo, that's blown my mind, all of that. I just love it. I come away knowing so much more than I did before we began. So that has been brilliant. Thank you so much, Sarah. And as we say, always a pleasure.
Never a chore.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. Bye for now.
Time. See you later.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us this time on Catching Up with Sarah and Ginny.
Always a pleasure and never a chore.